Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Dr. Robert A. Heineman, political science professor emeritus from Alfred University, is usually here on a Friday. We're having him in today, Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, and happy Thanksgiving. The reason he's here is because tomorrow is a 1-hour interview with President Donald Trump being conducted by Bill O'Reilly. Needless to say, Dr. Heineman, thanks for coming in.
I guess I've been upstaged by Mr. O'Reilly here, but that's all right. We'll still find something to talk about, Brian. Yes, indeed.
It should be good. Let's get your thoughts on the impeachment process.
Well, at this point, it's now the Schiff Committee. What is it? The
Schiff Show.
Yeah. What is it? The Intelligence Committee, I guess, is sending their recommendations now to Mr. Nadler and his Judiciary Committee. And at this point, they're going to call in constitutional scholars to discuss how to approach the whole impeachment issue and what constitutes constitutional grounds, etc. I think the thing you have to be careful of here, Brian, is to get sucked into this trap of talking about constitutional questions when it's pretty clear the Intelligence Committee has not laid out or come up with any clear crimes or misdemeanors or anything of that sort that President Trump is involved in. So I think to try to take the focus away from the really anemic findings that the Intelligence Committee is coming up with, and of course they'll fill it in with all kinds of hearsay and gossip that they've collected, but there's really nothing there. And I think we have to keep that in mind as the Judiciary Committee goes on, and I assume they'll bring in some fairly well-known constitutional scholars.
Isn't it supposed to be a Judiciary Committee that handles this and not Intelligence?
Well, it is kind of interesting they went that route, and I think part of it was kind of to let Schiff hang himself out there in the wind. And
the Democrats
he did a pretty good job of that. But again, I think in terms of the big picture here, the internal dynamics going on inside the Democrat Party in the House of Representatives have really got to be pretty grim. And where Pelosi's bouncing about in there, I'm not sure. But at this point, let me just note that I guess Nadler has said that the Republicans can bring some constitutional scholars in too. So we'll see where that goes. But the point is we got to avoid letting them pull the focus away from the fact there's really nothing there. And you can talk about constitutional issues all you want, which I have in the past done many, many times. But we got to have some sort of actual empirical evidence that something dastardly has been done. Now, tied into that then is the whole issue of how the country is responding to all this. And I think increasingly some of the Democrats in the House have got to be getting awfully nervous. And so, again, we mentioned earlier, and I understand some of your other pundits here have suggested that it may well make a way out of this for the Democrats is simply to wrap the president across the knuckles and say,
Censure.
You shouldn't really have done that. What he's done, I'm not sure, and let it go at that. The problem is right now President Trump is out there campaigning, saying basically what they're trying to do is overturn the judgment, the votes that you've cast. You voted for me, now they're trying to basically overturn your vote. And I suppose in some areas that might not play particularly well, But a number of these new congressmen, these new Democrats, have won in districts that Trump carried very heavily. And so when he goes into those districts and makes this point, these people are going to have to decide, are they going to vote for impeachment or are they not? And they don't want, I think, to be put in that position. So I think an easier way out by far for them would be to simply vote for some kind of censure or some sort of reprimand, and then go back and try to win re-election. But if they have to go back and try to win re-election, having basically flown in the face of most of the voters in their districts, I think that's going to be a tough sell for them. So I think at this point, it's a real question that whether this will actually end up in the Senate or not. Now, furthermore, of course, if it were to get into the Senate, then we have, 6 senators thinking they should be president. And so they're going to be tied up then in the Senate trial of President Trump. And that could be a couple of months that they're sitting there. Meanwhile, we have someone coming over the horizon there, don't we, Brian, in the Democrat primary?
You're talking about Mike Bloomberg?
Mr. Bloomberg will be coming along, beginning to make his name and program a lot more obvious to the country as a whole.
I have to say, having dealt with Bloomberg Radio and knowing people who've done work for them, it's an impressive radio operation.
Good. He's good, Brian. The guy is good.
Outside of that, what do you think his chances are?
I think his chances, I would not sell him short by any means. I see again and again people trying to sell him short. The problem he has, of course, is he's coming in here late. And as you know, in this past week, he's laid out, $31 million, which is more than quite a number of these candidates have spent altogether so far. And in some of these areas, he's focused in particular media areas in the country. He's already spent more than, I think, all the candidates combined in some of these areas. And you can imagine his ads are very good. And to give you an idea how Bloomberg operates, when he ran for mayor of New York City, first, months before the election, he had his people out surveying attitudes and opinions throughout New York City. Guns, stop and frisk, climate change, although the whole area, these kind of immigration, all these kinds of issues that, and of course some of them which may actually have something to do with New York City, like, for example, transportation and other things. And that way he was able to put together what people in the Bronx and Staten Island and areas like that, how they felt about these particular issues. And again, this was months before the campaign. The actual campaign kicks in. He's got a reading of the whole population in New York City. Then, when he gets ready to campaign, he focuses on, let's say, elderly black people, Catholic working class males, and lower Manhattan, upper 75th, whatever. And his radio ads, maybe not the radio and ads so much, but certainly the mailings and the robocalls all focused on attitudes that these people held. And it was very effective. And there's no reason he can't do the same thing here running for president.
Can I say something?
I certainly would not sell him short, even though President Trump does call him Little Mike.
Well, you're the first, if you'll forgive the phrase, talking head that I've heard who's spoken highly of the Bloomberg campaign. I mean both left and right.
Well, I'm telling you, that's why we're here, Brian, to add a little something different to your. No, I would say I certainly would not sell him short. This guy has read the public pretty well, and I'm sure he has all kinds of surveys and such he's working with, and with Bloomberg Business and such, I'm sure he has people who can do this so-called data analytics very well, probably a lot better than Hillary Clinton's people did in the last election. Now, I don't know if he's going to hook in with Facebook or Google or something like that, but if he does that, that's going to give him even more sources of data. I think what you have here, I think the real problem you have here, the real danger, is that as he begins to become more successful, and I could be totally off base here. I don't think I am, but I could be. You're going to see more and more of a movement towards some kind of third-party effort. You're going to see people like Warren and Sanders very unhappy, and AOC will be very unhappy because their nutcase supporters will be being moved more and more to the side. I think there'll be a real kind of movement towards some sort of third-party breakaway here, insisting on far more liberal, kind of progressive, so to speak, programs. So I think that's the real danger Bloomberg poses for the Democrats.
Dr. Bob, you and I have both been critical of former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who's been Trump's personal attorney and I guess somewhat of an investigator into Ukrainian affairs. Are we being too tough on Giuliani?
No.
Why?
Well, I just think he's caused all kinds of problems. And wherever he goes, he causes problems. The one thing he has done and did do pretty well was as mayor of New York City. But before that and after that, I think
you said before he's out of his element.
Yeah. I just think it's he's not well. And I think the other thing, and again, I don't want to be unduly unfair to him, but I think he's out there wherever he can make a little money, he's going to make it. And so I don't know how far removed he is from the Hunter Biden approach toward making money in the Ukraine, but I think he saw some opportunities there.
Doc?
But at any rate, we still don't know what all he's been doing, and I expect we'll be getting some investigative reports on that.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, Jeffrey Epstein, yes. Well, it looks as though the Attorney General Barr and the Justice Department have decided that Mr. Epstein did, in fact, kill himself. And I guess, frankly, I'd put a lot of confidence, frankly, in Barr's conclusions. I guess they've looked at it closely, and apparently they've decided that there's one screw-up after another, and it just happened that Epstein was able to hang himself. So I give a lot of credibility. There's no reason why Barr would try to smooth this over. But now what we're moving toward is the other side of the Epstein situation, and that is how many people were involved in dealing with these teenage girls.
Will Epstein's girlfriend help people find out?
Well, I would think I don't know. I mean, they have, as we mentioned, we'd like to know what she has to say. And apparently the FBI, and she's been willing to come forward now and talk with the FBI about what was going on. And, frankly, she could be liable to, I think, some pretty clear criminal charges. I don't know how far the statute of limitations goes in these situations.
For recruiting / co-blackmail?
Yeah, and that sort of thing, right. But it's quite possible that she'll turn state's evidence, which I think would, might well be a real temptation for her, in which case she undoubtedly has one heck of a lot of information that is, if it can't be used to indict some of these people, it can certainly be used to embarrass them. And again, the statute of limitations, I don't know where it plays in, and I don't know where this island off the coast, the little pedophile island there, I don't know whose jurisdiction that's in, whether that's even in this country. So the question of actual legal liability becomes more tenuous. But certainly the embarrassment and the fact that quite a number of really well-known people were being serviced, so to speak, by Mr. Epstein can be, I think, a real embarrassment.
Prince Andrew.
Yes.
Your thoughts, Prince Andrew, he's out of the palace. He's lost all his sponsor endorsements. Yeah. Will he be testifying against people, or will he get dragged into a court somewhere? How's that work?
Well, I don't know that there's any basis at this point for actually dragging him into court, although some of the activities he was involved in, I think, allegedly were in England. So I don't know.
They have a different cutoff point age for that stuff over there?
They may have. Certainly once you get on the continent, there's a real cutoff in some of these situations. And again, question of being consensual and things of that sort. I think what's interesting about this is that they've really hung Prince Andrew out to dry, and there's got to be many, many, many others who are involved and probably involved more deeply than Prince Andrew ever was. So in terms of fairness, I think we should out all these people, Brian. Yes.
That would be...
Maybe we could do it right here. If you could get hold of those films that they have, Brian, we could...
That would be the end, I think, of a lot of careers, not just political.
Yes, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Business-wise and politically wise as well, yes.
Talking to Dr. Robert E. Heineman, political science professor emeritus, Alfred University. Libertarians put out a statement. They're very upset with Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, that's too bad. I know you got sympathy for the Libertarians, Brian, but they're nothing but a...
Well, I find Rand Paul says some very interesting things.
Well, that could
Although
be,
Larry Sharp said to me, I asked Larry Sharp once, the former Libertarian candidate for governor for New York State, I said, your thoughts on people like Judge Andrew Napolitano and your thoughts on Senator Rand Paul? He said, those are Republicans with libertarian leanings.
I see. It's just not pure enough for the
That's what you seem to
Libertarians, huh? Yeah.
Anyways, Libertarians are upset because they say Governor Cuomo has signed a law that makes it so to get on the ballot you need 130,000 votes.
I don't know. At one point you needed 50,000 votes for governor.
Cuomo's made it go up higher. And it's going to hurt third parties, they say.
250,000 if I had my way, but you think they got it at 130,000
That's what the Libertarians put out a statement saying.
Well, and the idea is that'll pretty much wipe the Libertarians off of...
What about Working Families Party?
Well, I don't know. I think the Working Families Party may still have enough clout to get that many votes on their line. The advantage here is you get an automatic line on the ballot. You can still go out and run as a third-party candidate, but I think you have to get so many petitions and that sort of thing. It gets pretty expensive to get on the ballot that way. This way, it's automatic. Again, New York State is one of the few states that allow you to aggregate your votes so that you run on the independence line, the conservative line, the libertarian line, the Republican line, and as a candidate, you can add all those votes together. The problem is it leads to some real nasty, I want to use my stronger language on this, but it's kind of like little harlots of the political world here. You sell yourself in your line, so that years ago we had this fellow in our area who sold himself as a conservative line. I believe it was in Cattaraugus County. Let me be clear on that. So he had the conservative line in Cattaraugus County. And then his wife had the independence line in Cattaraugus County. So that if you wanted to get nominated by the independents and the independence line and the conservative line, you had to deal with him and his wife. And he was able to get positions on candidates' staffs and things of that sort. Milked it pretty well. And until finally Kathy Young came in and just took over the conservative party meetings, and he was out on his tail. But that happens all over. And so it does lead to a kind of a, I think, removal of let's let the Republicans and Democrats run against each other and take it from there.
Looking on the New York Post website, they have an article, and all it is a bunch of tweets and collection of tweets and emails and letters to Governor Andrew Cuomo, scolding Governor Andrew Cuomo for letting Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez influence him on the Amazon.com failure deal going down in Queens. I guess we know who wears the pants in New York now, especially in the Democratic Party. One person wrote, is there any truth to that statement? Does AOC run things?
I can't handle Twitter one way or another. I can't get too concerned about it.
But is there any truth to that? Does AOC run things in New York State?
Well, no. I think
Jay Jacobs and Governor Cuomo do?
I think Governor Cuomo does. Jay Jacobson can, whoever he is, what's he, the state chairman?
Yes.
No, I think... No, Cuomo's got a pretty firm handle on all this sort of thing. I do see, however, that, am I correct, that Wegmans has now opened a store in New York City, and the New York Times is going bonkers,
Why would they not like Wegmans?
Oh, and it's not that they don't like it. No, they're kind of wondering why so many people do like it. Well, welcome to... the community and
is that beneath the New York Times to go into Wegmans?
I don't know. I'm just saying that they have had a number of articles and pointed out how much enthusiasm there is for Wegmans in the city.
Interesting.
Yeah, you haven't been following this, Brian.
No, I have not.
Yeah. No, Wegmans is one heck of a business. There's no two ways about it. They're pretty amazing.
Alrighty, Doc. Well, we're just about out of time. Was there anything I didn't bring up?
There might have been something there, Brian, but I guess we'll just have to leave it for a later date. I do think increasingly you're seeing Trump, though, out there telling the public that what the Democrats are trying to do is steal the election from them, and I think he's got something that'll sell there. Oh, I do think his appeal to the African Americans is apparently, according to polls, going up. And so you've got two African American candidates there trying desperately to sell themselves in that respect. And here Trump's support there is beginning to grow. Not that he has a majority by any means, but if he gets up to 25 or 30% support among black Americans.
Is that higher than Reagan's?
I don't know. But it makes him unbeatable, I'll tell you that.
Okay. With that, we do have to go. Dr. Bob, I want to thank you so much.
Well, let's hope everyone has a good Turkey Day, and we'll move on to Fridays again.
All righty. That'll be next week. Donald Trump coming up tomorrow with Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for reminding me.
You got it.